Hugh Freeze produce a 3,000-yard passer at Auburn? Let's talk about it. In its long storied history, Auburn has not been known for producing prolific passers. The school, once known as running back U, has struggled to find consistency in the pass game at times. Now, on last week's episode of The Mix, we talked about the plethora of 1,000-yard running backs to come out of Auburn. But what about QB? Let's take a look at where the bar has been, where it needs to be, and if Hugh Freeze can get Auburn there. Since the implementation of the college football playoff, only 3 QBs have won national titles without throwing for yards. J.J. McCarthy, Stetson Bennett, and J.T. Barrett all came up short of 3,000 yards in their national title campaigns. However, all 3 came damn close. Put an asterisk by J.T. Barrett since he got hurt versus Michigan that year and did not finish the season as Ohio State starter. Now let's take a look at every SEC champion quarterback and see how those guys fared in the passing game. Since 2014, only 4 quarterbacks have become conference champions without throwing for 3,000 yards. Jalen Hurts in 2016, Jacob Fromm in 2017, Stetson Bennett in 2021, and last year Jalen Milroe did it in 2023. So it seems modern day football requires a fairly prolific passing game if you want to compete for championships. Now let's take a look at how Auburn has done. Since 2014, Auburn has produced one 3,000-yard passing season, and it belongs to none other than the great Jarrett Stidham. In fact, Stidham is only the second 3,000-yard passer in the whole history of the program. This is somewhat shocking for a program that owns 2 undefeated seasons, 2 SEC titles, 1 national championship, and another national championship appearance in the last 24 years. In Stidham's 2017 season, Auburn came up 1 win short of making their first playoff. So it's safe to say when Auburn gets that kind of production at quarterback, they can be pretty dangerous. So can Hugh Freeze find a way to produce a 3,000-yard passer at Auburn? In Hugh Freeze's time as a head coach, he's produced 4 3,000-yard passers. So conventional wisdom suggests he knows how to get it done. Freeze will go into the spring with Peyton Thorne, Holden Geriner, Hank Brown, and the freshman Walker White at QB. Outside of Peyton Thorne, the other 3 quarterbacks have a combined 0 starts between them. So if Peyton Thorne isn't the guy, Freeze is going to have his work cut out for him. So who will it be? Let us know in the comments after the video who you think Auburn's starting QB will be and how many pass yards you think they'll throw for. And while you're at it, visit goldenscastiron.com for all your dumbbell and kettlebell needs. Get your weight up this spring with Golden's Cast Iron. We love them for sponsoring this segment, and you should too. I'm here with Auburn Athletic Director John Cohen to talk a little bit about the state of Auburn sports right now. John, let's jump right in here. The mark of every athletic director in the SEC is how their head coach does at football. You hired Hugh Freeze in year 1. Give me a quick assessment of the football program in year 1 and what you've seen there and what you're looking forward to based on what he's kind of accomplished here.
Well, the first 12 months are a ton of evaluation, right? You're evaluating your staff, you're evaluating your squad, and you have to make sure that the culture is where you want it. We know that we're going to get talented kids and talented coaches here at Auburn University. We always have, and that's really important. But the most important thing besides that is having a culture moving forward that really expounds upon the creed, really, which talks about in its second sentence, we believe in work, hard work. That has to be the generating force. And I think Coach Freeze, more than anything else, has gotten that building, that Waltos Football Performance Center, into a place where everybody's pulling in the same direction. And again, the roster isn't exactly where we want it to be. We'd like some freshmen to be seniors right now, but they're going to be freshmen. But you look at this class and you look at what has happened over the last 13, 14 months in terms of that recruiting class, and you say he comes here, we're in the 40s or 50s or 60s as a recruiting class. Now we have a top 10 class at Auburn University, and I'm so excited with the things that are happening, not only football, but in all of our sports. Just tonight as we film, we're going to play Kentucky. What an incredible atmosphere we had for game day. Game day comes to Auburn 4 years in a row. Just incredible what's happening here at Auburn University.
Do you feel like Coach Freeze understands that he has the time to do, to build this thing? It takes time to get a program into a consistent winner, but the pressure sometimes feels overwhelming for certain coaches. Depending on the school you're at Auburn, football's super important. What is his feeling? What kind of conversations have you guys had about the time that it takes to build this thing into a winner?
Well, the message was this: when we got here, there's no question, we're struggling a little bit. We're going to be honest.
Yeah.
When at that point in time, it's not the standard that Auburn has had in the past, and we didn't get to that point overnight, and we're not going to get out of that overnight as well. But you keep taking steps, you keep taking positive movements, and eventually Hugh Freeze and his staff here at Auburn are really going to have some exciting times ahead.
Well, they're certainly doing their best to flip the script. The recruiting class is a great start. A lot of excitement in the fan base. John, let's move on to basketball. Part of your mission when you came here was the fan culture, right? The fan support. It's something that you've kind of majored in at every stop that you've been in. And since you've been here at Auburn, the experience in every sport, it seems like it's gone to like a grade A experience. It is national news that Neville Arena is not a place you can get out of alive with a win if you're an opposing team. Bruce Pearl has built something special here even before you got here, but you've helped him build that experience into something that is even more special than it already was.
Well, Mike, I'm going to tell you, way before John Cohen was here, there was an incredible atmosphere in our arena, and Neville's just, I have to say, I've been very fortunate in my career. I've been able to go to a lot of these facilities. There is no home field court advantage like Neville Arena. It is something unlike I haven't seen. And I think a lot of schools around, not only the SEC, but around the country, have kind of copied the nature, the blueprint of Neville Arena. But I'm not sure anybody's been able to recreate what's happening there. It is in a different level atmosphere, and it has a lot to do with those who designed that building, of which I'm not one of those people, Jay Jacobs and others, but it also has a lot to do with Bruce Pearl.
Yeah.
And Bruce is he is part of our fan base. He will cross any room to encourage anybody. Mike, you've seen that over and over and over again. Bruce is one of the many reasons I wanted to be at Auburn University. He is a winner, and he will do whatever it takes to be part of this Auburn community, and I feel privileged to get to work with Bruce every day.
You didn't hire Bruce Pearl, but you inherited, obviously, a great basketball coach. As we're sitting here, I see you wearing the Outlive Foundation shirt. That's something that's near and dear to Coach Pearl's heart. I had a close friend that was also close to Bruce that passed away last year. Her name was Nikki Sheik. She had stage 4 cancer when she passed, but she helped Bruce Pearl organize a lot of things for Outlive in that mission to try to help, people with cancer. How important has it been to have a role model like Bruce Pearl as a head coach of one of your major sports programs?
It's phenomenal, and I take a great. It is such a privilege for me to be in that locker room with the players and with Bruce. He is a maestro with his staff of getting the most out of that group, and he's this. I spent a lot of time in my career coaching. He is this really delicate balance of taking input from his players, listening to his players, but never forgetting that he is running that program. He is calling the shots. What he says goes. But there's this mutual respect that he has with his players. And listen, sometimes it's contemptuous. I mean, sometimes they're going. But in any family, you're going to have a little bit of that. If you don't, then you have a bunch of people who really don't care. And when you have a bunch of people who really care, you're going to have those times where the energy gets the most. But it's so much fun to watch how he operates this program with his staff and to see how the players respond to him and how the fans respond to him. And it's a privilege to be part of it.
It's crazy. As a student here in the early 2000s, you could find basketball tickets on the ground outside of Beard Eves Coliseum. Now, standing room only. As we're recording this, Auburn will play Kentucky tonight in basketball. It's become one of the hottest tickets in the SEC. College game day is here. again, you've been kind of the architect of an experience that is now nationally renowned. So I want to talk about the other side of that coin. Bruce Pearl shares Neville Arena with Coach Johnny Harris on the women's side.
Right.
They are building something special on that side as well, too. As a matter of fact, their theme for the season is The Rise. She took over a winless SEC squad. They matched last year's SEC win total at 5 wins. They're going to surpass that. Talk about what she's doing there and the support that she seems to be drumming up. She's going door to door like Pearl did, asking fans, show up for this team. Can you talk about women's basketball for a second?
Yeah, so proud of Johnny. You're right. We're playing South Carolina on the men's side. She takes the microphone and says, I need you. Taking kind of a page out of Coach Pearl's playbook. And those two work so well with each other. But Johnny knows what it's supposed to look like. Johnny has been part of a national championship, I believe, at A&M as an assistant. And 2 trips to the championship game at Mississippi State. I've known Johnny for a long time. She knows what it's supposed to look like, and she can get a ton out of her players as well. She's a great evaluator. She is an authority figure to these kids, and I just believe in Johnny. I think she is a tremendous human being. She's not the person who's going to be highly vocal but she is somebody who really understands the game, really understands recruiting. And boy, I tell you what, her teams play defense.
Yeah.
And that's where it all starts.
I want to welcome Zach Blackerby of Locked on Auburn. Check him out on YouTube, Locked on Auburn, and the Locked on Auburn podcast. They do a great job over there. Zach, thanks for joining me. Let's jump right in here. Hugh Freeze is about to enter his second spring practice at Auburn. I had to think there for a second. I was like, did he get a first? Yes, he had a first.
Yes, he did.
Yes, he had a first. So he's entering his second spring practice. Assess year one for me. For Hugh Freeze, did Auburn accomplish what they set out to accomplish in year one?
I don't think so, at least on the field. But this coaching staff and Hugh Freeze, it seemed like the number one priority was acquiring talent. And so if you look at it through that lens, yeah, I think so. They had a top 10 recruiting class. They've got guys that they flipped right when they got here for the 2023 class and then the 2024 class. There's a bunch of those guys that could start as either true freshmen, redshirt freshmen, or true sophomores. And to me, I think that's encouraging for building the foundation of a program. But, Hugh Freeze talked about it after the bowl game loss, where he said, I don't know if I did a good job or not. As far as, having a losing record in year one. They probably shouldn't have had a losing record in year one. So it's tough to answer that because on the field results is what matters most. But long-term, you need talent. So that's a tricky one, Mike.
Yeah, I think that Hugh Freeze tried to get the message across to the fan base, Zach, that it's going to take time to build this thing. It starts with recruiting from high school.
Sure.
He said that he wanted the recruits from high school to feel like they were the priority. So much so that maybe he spent a little bit too much time recruiting and not enough game planning for the bowl game per his own admission after the bowl game. But he's going to turn his attention in year two more towards game planning because obviously you can't have another losing season in a row under this coach. That's going to involve developing the quarterback position. Peyton Thorne returns again for another year, but I want to take some time to brag on my friend Zach Blackerby, who mentioned Hank Brown repeatedly to me in private conversations. Hank Brown went out in the bowl game, and he looked impressive. Does Hank Brown have a real shot this spring, man, to take this job from Peyton Thorne?
I think he does. I think he does. I think some of that is going to have to do with Hank really needing to take a big step forward, which I think he's capable of doing. I also think Peyton's going to have to give the job up a little bit, which once again is possible. We'll see certainly what happens, but you've just got to think that he left a lot to be desired, through the odds of this coaching staff on the field. And so to me, I think Hank Brown has, a lot of the intangibles that you want. I think he's got the arm talent, and his teammates love him, Mike. I mean, this doesn't really matter, but I think it does to some extent. It's like if you look at anything Hank posts on social media, it's like the whole team comments about how great Hank is. And like you
Yeah.
don't see that for the other guys. And so I think the leadership component is there. I think the natural physical ability is there. I mean, he's got the frame that you want. He's got the touch. He's got the arm talent. But the thing that stood out to me most about Hank, and this stood out, I mean, this is why we signed an NIL deal with him as soon as he signed at Auburn, was his moxie. And
Yeah.
he's so focused and so controlled. And we saw that in the bowl game. He completes maybe the best pass of the season in his like first throw. And he didn't get too high and he didn't get too low. That's just kind of who he is. And that's what you want out of your quarterback. So yeah, I think Hank Brown certainly has a chance.
Zach, you spent time talking with Hank Brown, which is why I love having this conversation with you. About the type. I like what you said about he's got the moxie. He's got that thing. They brought Peyton Thorne in as an experienced guy that I think they assumed would make the people around him better. In your opinion, is Hank Brown a guy that makes the receivers around him better? They certainly seemed better when he was in the game.
Yeah, and he was thrown to the guys that weren't the traditional starters so yeah, I think so. I mean, it wasn't a different situation than Peyton or Holden Gurn were put in. So I mean, you can say Maryland was playing prevent defense, or you can say they took their starters out or whatever. That's fine, but he took what was given to him. And I don't think you can really say that about the other quarterbacks that were given that opportunity for Auburn in 2023.
Yeah, it certainly will be interesting. Hugh Freeze said after the bowl game that it would be an open competition. I was actually the one who was able to ask him after the bowl game, given what we saw. So a lot of fans will have their eyes set on that this spring.
Sure.
Last question, Zach, before we get out of here. Will the job be won this spring, or do you think that it goes into the fall?
No, unless it's Peyton. If it's Peyton and he takes this big step forward and maybe some of the other guys don't step up as much as this coaching staff wants them to, I could see them naming Peyton the starter. But if I had to guess, there's nothing official. I'm sure Peyton will be the guy who takes snaps first at A-Day and everything like that. But if somebody other than Peyton...
Zach, is there anything that the coaches can see from Peyton Thorne in practice that they haven't seen already that suggests that he's going to be a better quarterback in 2024 than he was in 2023?
Yeah, I don't know, because we heard mixed reviews about how he performed in practice. And the issue is when the game was on the line, like he wasn't there. Like he didn't really step up and do what you need him to do. How much of that can you simulate in practice? And we all know the answer to that. It's like you can only do so much. You can show that you know where everybody is on the field. You can show that you can deliver the ball and all of that. But this is a guy who started in the Big Ten for 2 years and then in the SEC for a year. Like he can make the throws. He understands football. He understands the passing patterns. It's, can you simulate pressure and can you show, okay, I'm a step better than I was a year ago? I think you can to some extent, Mike, but no. I mean, this coaching staff is going to, they're going to have to take a risk if they roll Peyton Thorne back out there again.
I think that it's going to be important for them to make maybe some determinations about that early if he's not going to be the guy. The great Al Borges once said to me that the clock, Zach, in a quarterback's head, that when they feel the pressure and how they react, that's not something that you can coach out of a kid. So you either have it or you don't. We'll see if Peyton Thorne has it. Certainly Zach Blackerby has it. Please go over to Locked On Auburn on YouTube. Subscribe if you don't already. They do great work over there. Zach, thanks for joining me. We'll see you next.